So we will please ask you to not speak too loud during the presentations. So I would like to first say thank you to everyone who came here and from the four directions, from even some distant places. Let's have a little look who came from the south. Those people who came from the north. Who came from the east. From the west. All right, so we got people from the four directions. So that is a nice way to start a circle, because we bring all our energies and our experience and stories in this circle today to share. And I would like to introduce the Slocan Valley to some of you who don't know it. The word Slocan is from the Sinaics language, the local native tribe that has been living here. They have found so far about 200 ancestral pit houses in this valley, dated as far as 12,500 years. So when we come in the land of First Nations, we usually honor them. We give thanks to them for being the caretakers of this land for many generations before we came. And in their language, they say lim lim, which means thank you. So there is a long story to what made this happen today. I'll just give you a brief introduction so you know what it's all about. It's the second annual BC Psychic Sasquatch Spiritual Gathering. Actually, 2 years ago, when my book was, my first book of the Sasquatch Message to Humanity series was published by Kewaunee and Kelly. Just around that same time, Jules found Kewaunee's book and invited him to come here in the same place here to do a speech. And there was interest, and the next year I moved in this area, which I knew already. And there was a lot of people who were having Sasquatch experiences or a great interest and a great open mind. As an example, Jules, raise your hand. Jules has gathered in the last couple of years over 70 Sasquatch accounts from people in this valley. So there is a lot of activity. Many people don't talk about it openly, but that's why we do this kind of gathering, so we can bring this information out. So we also give thanks and welcome very warmly our two other speakers, Kewaunee and Kelly Lapsaritis. They have had a little bit of a rough journey at the custom and everything for importing books. So these books are the only copies you can find in Canada right now. So it's a good occasion to get them. There's the two books of Kewaunee, the Psychic Sasquatch People and the Psychic Sasquatch. And there's the 3 books of the Sasquatch Message to Humanity. I authored the 2 first, and the 3rd one is a collaboration of 10 co-authors who channel Sasquatch. So this has all been part of ongoing disclosure process to bring out the experiencer story into public knowledge. To know that there's many more people out there who have Sasquatch encounters and communications, and that's a world phenomenon that happens on all continents. So I would just like to start by a little opening prayer. We come together in a sacred way, and we want to honor and give thanks for all the blessings we have and we carry and we find together and we share. So we give thanks and honor all the beings and powers that contribute to our life. So we give thanks to the four directions. To the east, that brings light every day, every night. And to the south, that brings the warm sun, the power of growth. To the west, it brings the shadow, the power of introspection and meditation. And to the north, that brings the great white wind of purification to teach us wisdom and strength. We honor all our relations in the four directions and thank them for their blessing and invite them to this circle. We honor also the four elements that keep everything alive, that make the world. The earth, the water, the air, the fire. They are the fabrics of the universe, and they are themselves made out of the fifth element, energy or ether, that is the pure substance. So we honor these things because they give us life, they give us bodies, they give us food and medicine. We honor the people who have worked here before us, the Sinaics, the people who came after, and we honor the people who are here now, and we honor the people who will come after us, the future generation. We want to leave good tracks for them. We honor all the living relatives of our family, the plants that give medicine, that give food, shelter, clothing. We give thanks to their spirit, our sentient beings. We give thanks to the trees, provide heat and shadow, shade. We give thanks to the rocks who hold the world and feed everything. We give thanks to all our animal relatives, the ones who swim the water, the ones who crawl, the ones who walk on many legs, the ones who fly, the ones who walk on four legs. And we give thanks to all of them for being here with us. We also honor our other two-legged relatives outside of our human family. There are some we call humanoids, and among them the Sasquatch people. They are our closest relatives. They have been here long before us. They have great wisdom to teach us. So we give thanks to them for being part of this gathering. And to the Star Elders and all the people of the other dimensions that watch over us and over this world. We also honor them and give thanks. We give thanks to Great Spirit, one and all in one, the universal consciousness that unites us all. And to our Mother Earth, because from her we came and we will return. All my relations. So before I will give a little brief summary of today's program. We have some kind of a schedule that we're going to try to stick to. I'll just do a chant and then pass the word to Kewaunee. He's going to talk about Sasquatch healing until about 3 o'clock. Then we're going to have a 15-minute break. And then we're going to have Kelly coming to talk until about 4:30. And then we're going to take another 15-minute break, and then I'm going to come and talk until about 6. At 6 we have a caterer coming. It's a vegetarian meal for $13 to pay directly to the caterer. So it would be nice if people want to hang around and we share this meal together, because it's very hard to find a restaurant within half an hour from here where we could even sit half of us. So we thought that bringing a meal here would be good at the end of the speech. And after, in the evening, we can have the room here or we can go outside because it's a nice day. So we can have a sharing circle and conversation. The couple, yes?
Would you like this switch?
Oh,
yes, alarm.
I don't think we should. We should
Okay.
not. A couple technical details. We don't have access to the kitchen. We don't have a coffee machine. So there's a tap. There's a tap. There's a sink out there in the next room. We have water, but no glass. So that's so just to say, otherwise, if you really need something, there's a little cafe across there, which is pretty Brazilian. Usually it closes around 5. There's a little convenience store 2 minutes down the road, and I think isn't there a natural food store across?
Yes, Evergreen.
There's an Evergreen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So within 5-minute drive, you can get food and drinks and stuff if you need. We apologize for not providing these things. All right, so that's about everything. Any special question? Okay, sounds clear. So I'll do the. Okay, there's the Sasquatch has been honored by many tribes for many generations, thousands of years. And some tribes include them in their ceremonies and have sacred chants, special chants for them. So I know a few I'll do. One that is Anishinaabe song from the Medicine Society, an ancient ancestral song. So also by singing these chants, we connect with their spirit and we invite them to be with us. Yeah. Sasquatch, especially the Sasquatch of this continent we call Turtle Island. Turtle Island. So without any more delay, I would like, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce to you Kewaunee Lapsaritis, author, speaker, researcher, scientist, who has over 60 years of experience in Sasquatch field, one of the greatest authorities on this planet, and experience. Please allow me to welcome Kewaunee.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I'm going to give an overview. Many of you maybe already know about it, about my background or how all this happened, but I just do that very briefly. But my talk today is a lot about healing, about what the Sasquatch people have done and the ETs that are with them. A lot of these are personal, and others are from other people. Well, I've been doing this for 62 years now. I'll be 75 at the end of the month. I'm a social scientist with 4 degrees. I taught anthropology at a New England college for a short time. Some people refer to me as a Sasquatch whisperer, some as a crypto-anthropologist. These are just labels, but if you need a label, those are the ones that describe me. Well, over the years, I've spent time all over the world, traveling to over 40 countries. I lived out of the country for 5 years, living in England, East Africa, Japan. Then I immigrated to Australia, and later was 4 times to Latin America, and the last time was doing an ethnographic study, living amongst the Kewaunee Indians of Upper Amazonia, in conjunction with the Columbian Institute of Anthropology. So this gave me an education in traveling and then going back and collecting a bunch of degrees. But in the end, it's simply where everything is in your heart more than in your head. So basically, I never carried a gun. I'm an expert shot at both shotgun and skeet shooting and rifle, and I just got rid of that many years ago. And but I did bring a camera out in the beginning, a zoom lens movie camera, and I realized that every time I was trying to do something, when I heard them coming, that they would disappear. And I said, geez, it's almost like they can dematerialize. But this is 1979, so I really didn't know very much about them at that time, other than in the literature. And the literature simply repeats and tells all these different strange encounters and how they get scared or what happened to their dogs or something. And so the mainstream researchers go by this. In other words, for some reason, they look for the negative stuff, because all these researchers are afraid. They're absolutely scared of them, but they want one. So how did I discover this? Well, one of the top researchers, an anthropologist from Idaho State University, was up in Ontario and in a cabin with 2 other people, and they all had rifles. And the last night there, the Sasquatch was throwing rocks at the cabin. They were really peltering it. They huddled in the corner with their guns at the ready. I mean, they don't know who these beings are. They know very little about it, but they're the experts. How could you be an expert if you hadn't really done the research? Because what they do, based on the present scientific model, is you must have a body to prove that whatever you're doing exists. Well, wait a minute, you do that for animals, not for people. But because they have hair, not fur, because they have hair, then they're being mislabeled. And as a matter of fact, they don't care. It's fur. They'll make up anything so they don't have to feel guilty if they murder one. And it's murder. It's not anything else but murder. So I've been at odds with these people. Right now, there's 19 of us from all over the world that are the experts on Sasquatch, but all they talk about is hair and tracks, hair and tracks. You know, tracks and hair don't talk. But the Sasquatch themselves do if you're kind enough and you stop stalking them with guns and cameras.
Right.
So what did I do? I'd sit and meditate in a tent and no guns or cameras, and they'd come out to the tent. They were coming up all the time. Then at that time I was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and working as an assistant director of a First Nation urban agency. So they invited me to go out on this property that was going to be blessed by a medicine man, a Wallace Piawase. He was a Potawatomi medicine man, a good friend of mine, who's now passed on. So he was out there, and there was just 6 of us. And I was invited to join them. Well, they started discussing, and they found some graves, Indian graves that they blessed and so forth, but then they sat on the side of the hill and started talking about all the little incidentals, and I got a tiny bit bored, and I thought I just got to stretch because I was sitting down, and I started walking around. I walked to the edge of the woods, and all of a sudden this voice in my head said, "I am the Sasquatch. I am here watching you and have been watching you for many years now." So, I thought I heard something, but there's no, you know, it was just totally, none of this ever scared me, but it startled and confused me. First time experienced mental telepathy. So I, you know, started to think, where is this coming from? He said, well, as I said, I am right here, and I am the Sasquatch. And every time I thought, he would answer. So, for whatever reason at the time, I got nervous and said, this isn't real, and I just wanted to stop it, because I never heard of anything like this. So I walked off into the middle of the field on a little knoll, and I could see the group right there not far, and looking around, and all of a sudden this very sophisticated voice said, I am a star person, and I too have been watching you for many years, longer than you know or understand right now. And I went like this, I said, I wonder where he is. When I thought that, he said, oh, well, I'm above you in another dimension in what you folks call a UFO. And I thought, okay, I'm still looking around, you know, and they started, you know, finally he said a few other things, and I said, I got to get back to the group. You know, I just was feeling really out of place. So I sat down amongst them, kind of squeezed in, and right in the middle of them saying, you know, you should build your sweat lodge over there, to the head of house, and the Native American who bought the property. And he said, oh no, I will not build it there. And the medicine man spoke up and said, oh, that's an excellent place to build your sweat lodge. And the owner said, oh no, I will not build it there. The star people have been landing their spaceships there, and I don't want to disrupt their activity. I stood up and, you know, and I jogged all the way to the house, and they had a picnic table there, and I sat down there thinking, what the heck just happened? You know, it kind of freaked me a little bit, that reality. So I don't blame other people if they say, hey, you sound nuts, you know, but my life, of course, since then has been like a science fiction movie, which my wife Kelly can attest to. But, so I thought, this is the end of it. You know, no one's ever going to believe me anyway, and I'm not going to make a fool of myself, so I'm not going to say anything to anybody. So, you know, I read where people have this one-time experience, and wow, and, you know, they remember it for the rest of their lives. But 2 days later, I'm sleeping, and 2:45 in the morning, a voice said, wake up, my friend, we are here. And I woke up, and I thought, I felt energy behind me, but I thought, oh no, a burglar broke in. And I really expected a gun in my face. And I rolled over in bed, and there were 2 Sasquatch there, but they were living apparitions. They were telling me that they're interdimensional, and they have access to 8 different dimensions. I have enough problem in this dimension. So they stood there, and the big one floated down through the floor, so his huge head was at arm's length. And I kind of turned around a little bit, and when I did, he frowned, and I could see every wrinkle in his face, and then he looked over at the other one. His pupils were moving, but I could still see through him. So they have mastered astral projection to a fine art, kind of thing. Well, that really woke me up, and I said, this is really important information. I mean, what's happening here? So I started to document it. Well, for the 2 months they kept coming and going. They even brought their little 4-foot son with them that was at the far end of my bed. He wouldn't get near me. They keep in mind, over all these years, the Sasquatch had been shot at from when the settlers came. So I've read so many accounts where they're out hunting, a couple of guys, and they're standing there and a Sasquatch steps out just to look at them. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. It's very innocuous. Hey, look at that. And they pull up and wound them. They've done this several times. Well, they can telepath to other beings around the world, to the Yeti, to the Yowie in Australia, any of these. From where they're at here, they can telepath. So, they continued to come to me for almost 2 months, and then I started to take a course at Marquette University at night in professional writing. I'd done a lot of writing, even for a newspaper, and of course a lot of research papers. But I wanted to refine myself, so I started to take this course at night, a night course. And I wanted to write about my experiences, so I wrote it down called it Chapter 1, just to see, I didn't quite know how this was going to be. And I explained that to the professor. I said, I really don't want people to know. Of course, I don't care now, but back then I didn't want anybody to know. He said, oh, don't worry. So, at any rate, he gave it to me when I handed it in. The next time I came in, he handed it to me. And I went and sat down and started going through it. But there was only one other student there. Now, these people were housewives, attorneys, an engineer, and different people that wanted to learn writing. And so somebody was way on the other side, and I'm by myself, so I can read. But all of a sudden, the woman that kept sitting beside me, who wasn't there, I didn't see her come in, and she was reading over my shoulder. And she said, oh my God, she said, you're doing that with Sasquatch? And I didn't want anybody to know. And she said, my best friend has been interacting with her. Okay, my first interview. She didn't want to talk to me. We had dinner together, and she hardly said a word. This is her friend, that is. But eventually she opened up 2 other times, and it's in my first book. I guess it's the second chapter of Mrs. Jones' New Friend. So this really fascinated me because she gave me a lot of information, and at that time, which I knew very little of, but they kept coming to me still, and they were spoon-feeding. They were spoon-feeding. So as time went on, of course, I moved, and as soon as I moved from there to Oregon, before I knew it, they were all around me again, and spaceships landing and all this other stuff. So they've been with me. I asked them, really, how long? They said, we were there at the moment of your birth. And I thought, why would they do that? Who am I? What's the big deal? And they said, they didn't tell me at first, and I thought about it, and I said, is my soul that of a Sasquatch? And they didn't say yes or no. I said Sasquatch or E.T., and they didn't say yes or no. Of course, I was raised hunting, fishing, trapping, and had all these wild animals as pets, and I felt the most comfortable in the forest. And they said something like this back. Many people, no, they said a few people are like you, but you have the awareness to understand what's going on in your soul. And so they explained some things, but never quick yes or no kind of thing. So a lot of these people that are having these real in-depth experiences, which is Bo is one, and now my wife, and my 8-year-old son, they talk to him and he loves them. He's, oh yeah, I love the Bigfoot people. He's a character. But so why? Because our souls are from the ancient ones. Now, there's these different races of beings, and I call them forest people. But the researchers, the mainstream conservatives, lump them all, because they don't know any better. The experts don't know any better. So there's those that are called the ancient ones that have human faces, round heads like us. Their arms are in proportion to their bodies like us, though they have hair all over their body. I've seen some of the women, and the last woman I saw was really quite young, and she would have won Miss America with overwhelmingly. She was so beautiful with green eyes and everything, I couldn't believe it. The thing is, she asked me to come in the forest with her to make love, and I said no. And the reason I said no, is that just 2 weeks before I had a broken engagement, and I was in a depression. So at that time, this was 1989. So, of course, thinking back, I probably should have done it for science. Now, so I started to realize their powers and abilities. And, it's hard to explain to the conservatives because they think you're exaggerating when I was downplaying. So they're basically, you've got the ancient ones that said, again, they're friends with the Sasquatch. The Sasquatch have ape-like faces. They have a sagittal crest or elongated skulls. Their arms are down to their knees. Those are Sasquatch. The others are ancient ones. And then there's the dog face or the werewolf types. But they're also very friendly, but all you see is teeth and these strange beings moving around, and so people are afraid of them. But they don't hurt anybody. And they're less tolerant than the Sasquatch, but there's less of them. We are living, there's 3 tribes. There's Sasquatch, ancient ones, and the guardians, the dog face. They're the guardians because they guard the portals to make sure nothing negative comes through, negative beings come through. So they told me later on that they said they were here for 200 million years. And interestingly enough, this is what they told Bo, but in the Vedic literature in India, which is the oldest, Sanskrit is the oldest writings on the planet, it says that the Hanuman, who was the head of the monkey people, could do all kinds of things and describe the same things that the Sasquatch do. So, and it says that they were there with the ETs 200 million years ago. So that's in writing that was put down 6,000 years ago, because all that was passed on orally from ET to ET, different ETs, and eventually to the people of India. Mostly they go to medicine men, priests, or a holy man in order to interact, because their vibrations are higher, like theirs. And people, they go to healers a lot, like myself. I've been doing healing work for 42 years, specializing in cancer and life-threatening diseases. I'm a master herbalist. So I've had cancer twice. Both times they told me it was fatal. I said, goodbye, I don't want to deal with you. And the first time it was liver cancer. I was dying. And I was in Flagstaff, Arizona. I just moved from Oregon. And, excuse me, I was visiting a medicine woman in Sedona. And we sat for hours talking. And I still remember, 11 o'clock at night, I started yawning, and I must have yawned about 10 times. And about 10 minutes to 12, I said, look, I really should go. And she said, well, look, it's late. And she said, you're tired and sleepy. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but the canyons and everything, you could go over the side, the cliffs. And she said, I have a guest room if you'd like to sleep there. She said, I'd feel better if you did, because And I said, okay, it suits me. So I went down the hall and went in. got in bed and I reached over and shut off the light. And as soon as I did, 4 6.5-foot kachinas were at the foot of my bed. And each time they moved, the feathers, you could hear them ruffling. And when they go from one side to the other, I could hear the of bells around their ankles. And they were there for 50 minutes telling me about my life and telling me what herbs could save my life and what I needed to do and how I drew that to me emotionally. Now, I'm also a hypnotherapist. One of my degrees is in psychology. And I've lectured at medical colleges and all this kind of thing. But they're, I want to lose my train of thought here. They told me about my life and about what I need to do to release emotionally and spiritually, to get more firmly on the path and to heal myself. So 2 days later I collapsed, but I had time to get the herbs and stuff that I needed. And I stayed in bed for 5.5 weeks. And I got up periodically, but I was sleeping like 20 hours a day kind of thing. So 2 days of me saying all this stuff to release all the negativity that they pointed out, all of a sudden there was Jesus Christ, Mary Mother, the Sasquatch and ETs all around the bed saying, you made it. Keep going. Now the herbs will work. So a lot of the time when people take herbs and they say, oh, it doesn't work, because they drew that disease to them through their emotions. So you have to release that negativity and through forgiveness. And I think that's probably one of the key things in this life for everyone. It has nothing to do with religion, actually, in that sense. I don't belong to a religion, but I pray every day for world peace and for my people who are sick. I have a prayer list. So this is important. This is really important. So 5.5 weeks later, I was perfectly fine, and the doctor was shocked. And the other time was 6 months later. I had melanoma. That took only 2.5 weeks to get rid of with my herbs. So I did run into some problems along the way, though. I spent 4 years in Army intelligence with a top secret crypto security clearance, and I was injured in the service, my back, and it seemed to heal and be okay, but as time went on, and it started to bother me off and on. And then one day, I came back from shopping, stopped at a friend's house. I lived in the country, in the Oregon Cascades. I sat down and talked to him, and 30 minutes later I said, well, I better get going. I got groceries in the car. I couldn't stand up. And I said, would you help me? He said, what are you talking about? He said, help me up. And he just sat there smiling. He said, well, so he started talking about something else. I said, no, you don't understand. He said, I can't get up. I don't know why. And he said, but you walked in here. And I said, I know. And that's what's scaring me at the time, you know. I'm a hiker and been a fitness buff most of my life. And so he rocked me. I didn't know if I could stand all together, but he rocked me until I stood up. And I said, let me hold on to you. And he was kind of looking at me, you know, and he helped me to the car, and I held on to the car and got in and drove home. But when I woke up in the morning, I was in excruciating pain. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, and 10's the worst, it was a 10.5. I didn't recognize myself looking in the mirror because of the stress of the pain. And so I thought, God, I got to see a chiropractor. Not knowing what was going on, the chiropractor, of course, they wheeled me in a wheelchair. He looked at me and said, I can't do anything for you. He said, this is the worst case of a ruptured disc I've ever seen in my life. Oh, he said, you need to see a neurosurgeon. Oh. So I went to see one, and the first thing he did is, we're talking, you know, I mean, I'm a holistic health consultant, so I discuss things and educate my clients. And I don't say, you're going to take this. No, we work together. So he's sitting there writing some stuff, and I said, he said, well, it's all set for Thursday. I said, what is set for Thursday? He said, surgery. I said, excuse me, I said, it's my body, and you've never asked me, you've never discussed this with me. And he kind of looked at me, and he said, okay, he said, look, I'll prescribe some painkillers. But he said, I guarantee you, in 10 days when these are gone, you'll be begging me for surgery. And I have no idea why I said this. I looked at him and said, doctor, you'll never see me again. And I wheeled myself out and went home. But I've been trying everything I could, thinking in terms of herbology and all this stuff, but it was a structural thing, okay? So I said, why don't I telepath to the star people? Because the cabin I was in had a huge deck, and I used to go out there at night, and even in the daytime, towards evening though, I'd see a spaceship come in and go behind this small mountain or hill that was right there in front of me. And there's the Umpqua River flowed right between that hill and me. I was on top of a cliff. And the people there, along the strip, everybody has seen spaceships there come up and down the river. That's what an 18-year-old kid that I met there told me, oh, everybody's seen them, you know. So anyway, I said, they're here, so maybe something could happen. So I telepath all day long. I'm laying down, always on my back, about 4 hours sleep a night. And it wasn't a restful 4 hours. And I was a mess. And the pain wouldn't go away for anything. First day, nothing. I did it all day long. Second day, I did it all day long. And I'd say by the end of the afternoon, I just broke down and wept and wept. The frustration, the pain, the feeling hopeless. And so I said, I guess they're not coming. And so I gave up. So I shut off the light a little after 10, and as soon as I did, I hear footsteps shuffling. So I'm trying to turn around in bed, and there's three little 3.5, 4 foot beings there. They had spacesuits on, so they weren't the regular grays or whatever. And they said, we're here to heal you. And I said to them, thank you, God bless you. That's the first thing I said to them, and bing, they put me out. So during this time frame, I heard a strange language that woke me up from this putting me out. It sounded something like this. You know, some fast language. And I opened my eyes, and there was one there, one behind me, and one here. And he had a cylindrical object in his hand, like this. And I looked up at him, and I said, oh, it's only you. I love you. I mean, what do you say to beings that come to heal you? I mean, and they didn't even ask me if I had insurance. But the next morning, I woke up 10.5 hours later. Now, it's the first sleep I ever had, and I was so rested I couldn't believe it. I felt like a different person, and not one bit of pain. Zero. I sat at the edge of the bed thinking, I said, I can't believe what happened last night. And I sat there and said my morning prayers, but I kept saying them over and over again, sitting giggling in between times, thanking God and just not knowing what to do. So I got up and walked to the bathroom for the first time, and I noticed that when I reached out, that I could only take a small steps at a time, not my regular gait. There was a pressure there. So I said, okay, I'll stay home. I guess they'll probably go away or something. That night, I went to bed, same thing. I was right on 10:30. Immediately, those 3 little guys were there. And they said, we need to do one more healing on you to complete it. And I said, thank you, come ahead. And I woke up the next morning completely fine, as if it had never happened. So it was really interesting because one of my best friends had a 1,000-acre ranch 35 miles away towards the coast. And about once a month, I'd take off over there, and I had ET and Sasquatch experiences on his property. But go over to visit, and I'd pitch in. One of my hobbies is gourmet cooking, so I do all the cooking for him when I'm there to visit him and his family. So I said, I'm going to go visit him. So I decided I've got to go in town. There wasn't any ATMs or anything like that back then. This was, let's see, 86, yeah. So I realized I didn't have any money for gas and stuff, and so I said, gee, better hurry and get into town because the bank closes at 5. So I drove into town Friday night, a lot of traffic. I finally found a place, and I jogged down the street to the bank, which I could see right in front of me, and it was 7 minutes to 5. I still remember this. And I'm jogging down, I jogged up to the lights right there, land like that, and I look, and one of the doctors is walking across the street, looking at, and he stood there pointing to my feet, rubbing his head like this. His mouth was moving, but nothing was coming out. And I said, have a nice day, doctor. And I jogged across to the bank, you know. So, I mean, I know, there's a bit of humor in this and everything, but I tell you, I am so grateful to them. Now, I've injured it a few other times, and they've come and heal me to take away the pain, but they've never completely healed me. And I've kind of wondered about that, and my thinking is it's karmic, that this is, I have to play out my karma, but still I can do it without a lot of pain, especially because I'm working for them and with them. Kelly and I are, and Bo. And so we're spearheading this whole thing without realizing if all this was going to happen. But now, I had a spiritual teacher, a woman that I met. I met one woman who was a UFO buff, and she knew her best friend was a woman named Isabel, who became my best friend there more than anybody else. She was a spiritual teacher. She was born in Scotland, but she had an English mother, she tells me, so she doesn't speak Scottish. And she was just a lovely, lovely person. She died at age 95, about 6 years ago. She had some kidney problems, spent 2 weeks in the hospital, and their drugs clogged up her kidneys, made everything worse. She said, I got worse. Yeah, those artificial drugs don't belong in the body. So she came home to die, but her best friend, this UFO buff, said, I know this guy that speaks at conferences and stuff, and he's an herbalist. So she says, I'll do anything at this point. So I came over, told her what to do, and 3 days later, she had a cleanse in the bathroom, and right afterwards, she said, I can't believe it. I said, you got rid of all the toxins that were in there. She says, I have so much energy, I can't believe it. But what happened was, somebody else came into town to discuss UFOs and their encounters, and so some person had a huge house and invited anyone that was interested to come. So I went, and while I was there, I went early, and I was talking to a couple of people, and who walked through the door but Isabel. And she had lost 16 pounds, because I put her on a different diet that created her problem to begin with. And she had her hair done, and I walked up to me and kissed me right on the lips. I was, 42 at the time, and she was 77. And she was like a mother figure for me. She said, thank you for saving my life. And then she told me what had happened. But she taught me so much about, again, spirituality, about my thinking process, which was very important, because it's important to the ETs and to the forest people. Because if your thinking's negative all the time, you're not going to attract them. They tell me to meditate more, which I do, but I still get off, I guess I'm doing so much, I get off balance, but meditation is very, very important, they say. I said, yeah, but I pray every day. So I know you do. For years, you pray every day. But prayer is talking to God. Meditation is quieting the mind and the intellect and listening to God or to the universe. And you'll get answers, and you'll change. You'll evolve closer to them. So Isabel, about 3 or 4 years later, her son called me up and said she's in a hospital with pneumonia. Because she was in, I said, oh, and she said, yeah. She said, they say it's real severe and she may not make it over the weekend. And this was on a Friday. So I quickly telepathed to my friends, could you help her? And so on and so forth. And so I didn't hear anything else and whatever. And on Monday, I got a call from Isabel. And she says, I want to thank you. I said, what happened? She said, well, she says, Friday night, she said, I was awoke, and she said there was a Sasquatch standing beside the bed in her hospital room. And I've sent them to the hospital 4 times, and every time they help people, mostly those that were dying, and close to me. They just don't do it for anybody. And so she said there was an ET with him that floated up onto the bed and put his hand up like this, and she could feel energy going into her chest. And she says the next morning, when they come in to check her, they says, we don't know what's going on, we don't have pneumonia. She says, then release me. So we can't. The doctor went fishing, and we need his thing. He's gone for the weekend. So you have to wait till Monday. And she had just got back, and so she called me on Monday. So these people, these forest people and everything, they sound like monsters to you? The only monsters I know are those that are trying to kill them. So they're not trying to communicate. They're trying to shoot them. Big male egos. I'm working with them and butting heads. There's 19 of us on a deal on the internet, and we're going back and forth and asking questions. But when I start putting my 2 cents in, they kind of brace themselves because they don't want to hear reality. I mean, some of this, like I said, may sound science fiction, but the paranormal has become very normal to us. It's a part of us, and it's a part of everybody here if one desires to work through that. Another time, I had an emotional upset, and through someone that was not, that had no integrity, and I didn't know that. And it was upsetting, and I kept it to myself, and I wasn't married at the time or anything. I lived by myself, but finally it bothered me, and I couldn't sleep. So I went up to a place called Tai Mountain, where I was meeting with them, and there's a place in the forest where the trees are super gigantic, and it's just on this little plateau. It's not very big. Probably this building and the rest of the parking lot right there. But the rest of the mountain is very steep. And I went up there and I started telepathing to them. And I started out, there was a portal there, and I telepathed through the portal. And an ET on the other side said, we hear you, now go in peace. I said, okay. So I got up and started leaving, and I had been telepathing to the ancient ones. These were ancient ones. And so finally I said, I'm not sure what's going on, but maybe they're not here. Maybe they're busy or something. So I started walking out, and then I heard somebody walking behind me. When I stopped, they would stop. When I walked, they would walk. And they got closer and closer. So I waited to listen. I turned around and walked, and she had teleported in front of me. And I said, oh, it's you, Nati. Her name is Nati. And I said, it's you, Nati. And I started to explain to her, my plight. But she already knew all that, and she just instantly shot a bazooka or beam, like you can't see it, but of love energy that hit me in the heart chakra, and I just bursted into tears. And all of a sudden, I wasn't depressed, I had energy, I felt good, and I just thanked her and told her I loved her, and she said, well, we love you too. So they've been helpful on every level. Now, I get calls and emails all the time, of course, and people having experienced or thought they did, and they want confirmation. And so Kelly and I do a lot of that in helping people. And this woman from LA called me up, and actually she wrote me first, typed a 3-page letter, and left her phone numbers and all that. And then later she called me, saying that she had 2 short experiences, telepathy both times. she was with a group, another researcher, and a whole team of people in the redwood forest. Why would you go with a whole group of people to look for Sasquatch? I mean, duh. And anyhow, she saw that and said, this is wrong, what I'm doing. So she took off on the side and went on her own, wandering through the forest there, and she stopped for a while. She heard some noise, and all of a sudden this voice said, you people need to leave right now. So she went back and told him, and he wouldn't leave. So he knew better. He's an expert. So she had another experience in Colorado while camping. So she called me up and we're talking, and I'm a medical intuitive, so I was in the Cascades here outside of Seattle at the time in the cabin, and I said to her, oh, I said, you have pain, what's going on? You have pain in your left hip. She went, oh, like that over the phone. And she said, how did you know that? And I said, that's what I do for a living. And she said, oh. And all of us, we started talking about, she said, well, the doctors want to give me all these drugs, but I looked them up and they're too dangerous. I don't want to take them, but I don't know what to do with the pain. And all of a sudden, an ancient one started talking. I turned around, there were two of them standing there, interdimensionally, beside my desk. And they said, if she asks us, we will go and heal her. And I said, okay. I said, thank you. And I turned around and told her over the phone. I said, you know, they'll come if you want to. Oh, sure, I'll do it. It's all fine. So we started talking, and maybe a half a minute went by, and she goes, oh, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? I said, well, what is going on? Well, there's some energy here. I don't understand. There's energy. I said, well, they're probably giving you a healing. Huh? I said, they're giving you a healing. She said, really? She said, geez, I thought maybe they'd come sometime next week. So, guess what? She doesn't have arthritis anymore and couldn't take any of that. So, yeah, you know, there's always this butting heads about who Sasquatch are and what they do and all this, you know, with the mainstream people. And they say, oh, of course, Hawaii, there's no Sasquatch, so it's never been reported, so obviously they're not there. Well, they are. And they're not many, but there were 11 there when I was going to head there in 2005, and one was pregnant. So by the time I got there was 12. On Maui, there was 6. So they could come and go, I'm not sure, but they keep, you know. So people would say, well, how? There's no way that they could ever get there. And I said, yes, there is. Well, how? Spaceships drop them off. That's how they got there. They do this all the time. Nothing new. So I arranged it with my Sasquatch family here to meet them over there. So I was invited to speak at a conference there, big conference. And the woman started reading my book, and she said, why don't you stay for the summer or something, you know? I said, what do you mean? I said, I can't do that. She said, well, I have a ranch here, and I have a lot of guests all the time. And she said, why don't you stay at least a month? She says, and we can go swimming with a team of us with wild dolphins. I said, well, gee, that sounds pretty good. She's going to pay for it all. It sounds good, and plus I did a lot of healing work there, and plus I get paid, plus I sold books and so on. So it was nice because I didn't do any of this for money. But once you're by yourself or you're on Social Security, which I am, so the other just supplements the income. In fact, they said to me, we don't care if you make money on us because you're the only one of all the researchers that never try to exploit us in any way. So I said, fine. I told them, fine, what are the lotto numbers for this week? So I flew there and spoke at the conference, and afterwards, for that week, I went swimming with wild dolphins. The thing is, for a while we couldn't find them, and then when we did, they were at a distance. So we came to these waters, which looked about 60 feet deep, and there were several people here in the boat, and I had snorkels on and so on, and fins. So I was floating above the water, looking down to my left. I noticed 3 dolphins way down from me. I go, wow. And of course I've seen dolphins before, but not like right up close. And all of a sudden, this log floated in beside me. And I turned and looked at it, and it was right here in front of me, but it was a dolphin. But that's my first thought, because dolphins, see, when you got a tame dolphin, people think all dolphins will run right up to you in the ocean. Well, that's not true. So then I had an underwater camera hooked to my wrist, and so just as soon as it didn't try to swim away, it kind of floated away because it wasn't afraid of me. And two more came floating this side, and I took pictures of it, and they just looked at me casually, and then they went on their way. So finally they were gone, and I poked my head up, and all of a sudden the captain of the boat said, "I don't believe that." I said, "What?" He says, "The dolphins." I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Wild dolphins don't come up to people one after another like that, like they do to you." And I said, "Wild animals have been coming up to me since I was a kid." I said, "So I don't, that's fine with me." But it was a thrill. And then later I flew over to the island of Kewaunee, where they filmed Jurassic Park. I was in a hotel there, and I was trying to find where to go to locate them. So I drove all around, couldn't find anything that, trying to get familiar with the island. And so I telepathed to them and asked them, where do you want me to go? So they told me where to camp. That morning, I got up, still remember, I got a good memory, once in a while. It was 6:45, and I'm putting on my shoes, and I said, well, I'm going to the side of the island that they often have rain, even though this side they may not. So I'm going to see on the television if there's the weather report. So I turned it on, and I thought this was really a good omen. It was Harry and the Hendersons playing on TV. So I went out there and set up camp in the jungle. It was by a stream that came through, but I was hidden more in the jungle, and I could see the beach from where I was at. And one day I was walking along the beach, and this woman was walking along, and we just started talking, and she says, "Oh, you're camped in there?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "This is where they filmed the South Pacific back in the 50s. I said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." So that was the area. So the second night there, they came in, and they didn't telepath to me, but they shook my tent. I said, "If that's you outside," which I could feel them, and I said, "Well, maybe not. Is it them or not?" And I said, "If that's really you," I said, "touch my tent." Well, I waited, half a minute went by, and I said, "Oh, I guess it's not them." And I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden the tent went, I jumped. You get startled once in a while. I have no fear, but they can startle you, and they kind of get a kick out of it, actually, even though they're very serious beings. They do have a very light side to them. So during this time, because of my swimming and diving in a few times so at my back, and I started walking like this. And the pain came probably a 5 or 6, and I didn't carry medication or anything because I didn't think I needed anything. And I thought, what do I do? Gosh, this is awful. And I said, I want to swim, get out there and swim more, but I just kind of get in and bathe. And I'm a certified scuba diver even, so I'm not afraid of the water. I swam all over the South Pacific when I was in a French freighter. It took almost 2 months to cross, years ago when I left Sydney to Panama on my way back to the States. So I decided to telepath to the star people. So I'm laying there feeling miserable, and I got another couple days there, and I really, I'm a little hyper person, so I like to exercise and go out. I couldn't do anything. So I telepathed, and all of a sudden, I don't remember anything, and then I woke up outside my sleeping bag, on the side, and my little alarm clock was turned over. And I was sleeping in my sleeping bag on this side when this happened. And I said, oh, and I couldn't feel any pain. And I said, they did it. So I telepathed and thanked them. The next morning, I hiked 3.5 miles up into the high cliffs and everything and back. Then I came back and swam for an hour. No pain, nothing, you know. So they were good to me. They've been good to me. Now,